Chapter 5. Let's talk about musical texture. Just like when you're thinking about fabric having a texture, a linen, an embroidery, cotton, silk, different types of textures when you feel something, your hands, music has a texture, but it's a little bit different because you're hearing it, not feeling it. One of the types of texture that we have already talked about is monophony. That's just one single voice, just like you heard me in my examples, singing by themselves or one instrument playing by themselves. It's one line of music. There's no accompaniment. We're not even playing chords. It's just a single line of melody, one focus. It's called monophony. And you've got heterophony, which is a melody with an ornamented version of itself. So several musicians may be singing or playing the same musical line, but they may vary it a little bit, maybe different pitches, different rhythms. There's some subtle nuanced variations that may lend to the music sounding out of sync. Think about jazz, spirituals, things like that. They have what we call a heterophonic texture. It's a common texture in non-Western cultures, not as much in Western music cultures. The other more common one is polyphony. Polyphony is two or more melodic lines combined. It's based on something called counterpoint, which we'll talk more about later. And this one requires a little more experienced listening. A very simple version of polyphony would be a round, like row, row, row your boat. Maybe you sang that in preschool where you've got one person starting or one group starting, row, row, row your boat. And then the next phrase, the next group starts, row, row, row your boat, while the first group is singing gently down the stream. So you actually have two melodies going at the same time. That's a very simple definition of polyphony. Homophony is what we're most accustomed to hearing. It's a melody, which is the main focus of the tone that we're hearing, of the tune that we're hearing. And then you've got harmony with it. Those chords that are supporting that melody and really enhancing the principle or the main line. Okay. Most of all music you'll hear on the radio is homophony. Very rarely would you hear polyphony or um, heterophony. It's just or monophony. It's just mainly homophony. You've got a singer with harmonies. The harmonies, they can be instrumental, they can be vocal. Um, Homorhythmic is just when all the voices move in the same rhythm. That's not as common, but for instance, when you're singing a hymn in church, that's where all the parts kind of move together. You might think about a four-part harmony. But still, the melody is that most obvious, most important line. So you can have one texture, you can have two or more textures within a composition. You're not restricted to just doing one. There's a few examples of what monophonic, might look like. That one line, no chords underneath it. When we start to look at Gregorian chant, that's what it'll be. Polyphonic, you can see you've got this line one, and then line two all of a sudden is doing this totally different thing simultaneously while one continues to do its own thing. So you've got two independent melodic lines. Homophonic is one melody with subordinate accompaniment, meaning one main melody and something supporting it underneath it. Homorhythmic is when everyone moves together on the same rhythm. Ba, 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 ba. All right, there's some texture fabric. We just talked about that. All right, types of polyphony. There's a couple different types. You've got imitation, which is like the row or row your boat. That's a very basic type of polyphony. The melodic idea is presented, and then it's restated in another voice. Could be brief, could last the entire work. And it helps bring unity to a texture of polyphony. There could be strict imitation, and if that's the case, each voice, voce, is going to enter in succession with the exact same melody, just like that row, row, row your boat. All right, you can see how this lines up. Thank you.